Guys, leading an organization can be one of the most difficult things. One, because you're managing other people's lives, but more importantly, I think you're managing your own life, which can be daunting on its own. And if you're not optimizing things that you're doing outside as well as what's happening inside, you're not going to be the most effective coach or executive coach. And today I have a guest with me. Her name is Michele Kline. I told my wife I'm going to do this better in terms of building what you guys do, because normally I just say your names, but Michele Kline is a speaker. She's an author. She's a leadership coach. And you've been well renowned in this hospitality industry. I'm pumped to have you because I feel like I need executive coaching as well. We were just doing some prior to this. So welcome to the Coaches Podcast. Today it's going to be all about how to become a better executive coach.
Thank you so much for having me. This is great.
Yeah, I'm pumped because you have your own podcast. This is a little bit different. We actually did the same thing for a long time. I think you still have yours. How many episodes you have on your
We
your
are
podcast?
at 122 at this
Yeah.
point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's been a long journey.
Yeah.
Ups and downs for sure. Most people will quit by like episode 10 or something along
It's
those
less than
lines.
that. It's like
Yeah.
3.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're doing great.
Yeah. Yeah. So really quick, I want to talk about executive coaching. But before we really dive into the coaching side of it, I want to talk about the personalities. I think a lot of times my coaches will ask me, how do I become that? I think that's one of the big questions. And I have my own answers, but I wanted to get kind of your answers. Are there distinct personalities of becoming or just seeing executives and then just the normal average people, right? Do you see differences in there?
That's a very interesting question, Royce. And I think that when you are, what I have seen is that the chief executive officer is usually the visionary, right? And the chief operating officer is the one that will execute on that vision. But that doesn't necessarily mean that if you are a COO, you're not going to be able to become a CEO because you don't have that crazy, wild type of vision where you can see all these things in your head and then someone will grab it and execute for you. So I think that when it comes to being an executive, which depending on the size of the company, it'll vary. It can be anywhere between a director to a vice president, SVP, or anyone on the C-suite. I think that there are different traits that you must have to be able to make your way up to those specific positions. And I don't know if it has too much to do with personality. I am a strong believer and an educator of the Maxwell DISC method, where we,
John Maxwell?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I love John.
Me too.
Yeah.
And, I'll go out there and I'll teach corporate team members on the different personalities. And the reality is that you see those personalities in very specific roles, right? Especially in hospitality. Your executive chef usually has a few specific traits that you're going to see or a few things about their personality that you're going to see anywhere you go. And then anyone who is in finance and is dealing with numbers all day, they're going to have some other traits that you see, right? So it's hard to put everyone in the same bucket, but there are a few things that have to do with the role that you're in and the type of person or those traits in your personality and the way you communicate that will help you be in that role or that will make that role more comfortable for you.
Beautiful.
This by no means that you're now boxed.
Yeah.
Because although you know the way you are, or if you are able to take a course like the DISC Maxwell course, you're able to understand, what are those things? You become aware of how I respond to specific situations. What is the best way? We really focus on communication. So if I am this way And this is the way that I communicate. But then you are on a different umbrella or on a different quadrant. How can I reframe the way that I communicate so that I still feel authentic in my messaging, but I can bridge that gap between us and get to you in a way that you will understand, that you will buy into it, that you will be excited, inspired about it, right? So all those things I think that have a lot to do with, yes, the personality you're in, but also how much are you willing to bet on your growth? How much are you willing to continue to learn and, read and take a class and get coached, whatever that looks like to you? Your personality type or specific traits should not cap you to a particular department or to a particular role within an organization.
That was one of my biggest things that broke my heart, where you get segmented. I've done indexes, personality traits, the Enneagram. I'm like, I always felt limited by it, and I always wanted to prove it wrong. I was like, that's not only me. I can do other things. I think everyone has core personalities, and those core personalities are somewhat from influences from your parents, influences from the generation that you're in, the demographic that you're in, and that created the core personality. And when I take those indexes, I was like, no, but I don't want to be just that.
Yes, that is gold. That is what makes the difference. So I do two things in the hospitality industry. On the one hand, I focus on the quality. And by focusing on the quality of service, we have to read reports. We have to figure out what are people saying, how are they feeling about the service you're delivering and all those things. And then on the other hand, everything that has to do with leadership development and communication and all the things where I have those reports, like the Maxwell DISC report, where in both instances, the report is a report.
Yeah.
What do you do with the information that you have? You have a profit and loss sheet. What do you do with the information that you have? So that is gold. Being able to say, sure, I have this, that now gives me, I'm cautious to say a roadmap, because a roadmap feels like you have to go from point A to point B to point C, and that is where you're going to end up. So I would say it's more like a guide. The report is a guide. So any personality test that you go through will give you perspective, will give you awareness.
Yeah.
From that moment on, it's entirely up to you to decide, what am I going to do with this?
Yes.
I will give you a very personal example. I am an absolute introvert. And when I share this with people, they're like, no way. How do you do this, right? I can stand on a stage and speak to hundreds of people, or, I can get involved with a group of leaders that I've never met in my entire life and be able to find those connections with them. But guess what? I'm in my flow. So even though my report says, this is how I operate, I know that it's important for being in my flow. It's important for me to work on my calling every day of working with people and helping people grow, that I have to step out of that comfort zone. And I know that networking is important. So I have to push myself out of that, introvertness to allow me to continue to grow. So it's up to me to stay with that, right? Or being like caged in this area or boxed in this area where, well, you need absolutely everything as a 1, 2, 3 bullet points laid out for you. 5,000 different questions are going to be asked, and you need every single detail. I'm honing in on that.
Wow.
Because when I go in and I work with a team, I'm asking all sorts of questions. And that's what's helping me accelerate their growth. So what you said is gold.
Yeah.
It is what you do with the results that you get. Do you use them as a strength? Do you hone in on those, right? Do you have the mindset of feeling like, is this going to stop me from being successful? Well, that's up to you.
Guys, this is why she's one of the best executive coaches. Because I think some of the best coaches, they can take information and they're just information. They're not complete directions. You can get a negative information based on what someone thinks, but then you can leverage it and turn it into power. And a perfect example of what you did just before we were talking was, I think I'm a good leader, but I think I'm a really crappy manager. And then you're like, well, and then you challenge that notion and you poked at that belief. And now it's getting me to realize that maybe I am a good manager. I just don't have the systems and tools for it.
Yes, absolutely. And that's exactly what coaching does for you. Because you're going to be able to make those realizations on your own, which is very different than someone telling you what they see, because now you can challenge that perspective. But if you're able to make those realizations on your own, that is going to help you make the decision faster of, what do I want to do? Do I want to be a better manager? Can I stop seeing myself this way and really work on creating a plan, creating a system, right? Putting those things in place, understanding where it is that I see those areas of opportunity. And I say this because I know that you and I have a similar view or outlook at failure. Failure is it's a catapult, right? What do you do with that? You call it failure. I call it an area of opportunity. For me, it's like, yes, this is great. What do we do with this? So it's a matter of, maybe it's just a system that needs a little help, right? And creating that system and then looking back and thinking, could I have done something differently? Could I have tapped into resources before making that final decision? And those are all beautiful things. That's growth.
I love it. So I want to stay on this leadership and managing thing, because for a while, I blended the two. I thought they were the same thing. And 10 years into business, I started to realize they're two separate entities, I feel like. So do you believe there's a difference between leadership and management?
So we can look at this from two different perspectives. If I go down your rabbit hole, I can say management is the task, is the grind, is the things that you do to get the business going. It's the things that you do to get the department to hit those KPIs. And leadership is the motivation of people and, you know, the moving people to action. If I look at perhaps a more trending way of comparing management and leadership, what we keep on hearing on and on is management is someone who's giving you direction, who's telling you what to do. And then if you move a level up, you become a leader. And when you're a leader, you are a great communicator and you can inspire people to action and do all the things, right? So it's almost like it's an extra level, whereas the perspective that you have is very radical. And it's actually really cool because you can focus on the people, the inspiration, the moving them to action, the getting them to do the work, and the task. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, I think, So you touched up on different personalities on the CEO, the COO, and the CFO. I don't know if you did the CFO, but I think you like this because you did touch up on it. The CEO side tend to be more visionary. They're more future thinking. And I think leaderships are more future thinking. And then you have your chief operating officer, right, which is more present thinking. They think about the day to day. And they probably, at least for me, I'm like, okay, that's like the management type of day to day. How can they effectively serve their people based on the tasks that they do? What are those top 80% or the bottom 20% that creates 80% of the value for the clients? And then you have your CFO looking at the past based on the numbers. It's like, hey, this is what we did last year. I think this is all we have. This is what we need to do to project. I feel like there's the personality sides that you discuss that have massive impacts on that. And I find myself kind of in all of them, which is a nightmare.
Welcome to entrepreneurship.
Yeah, which is a nightmare. So speaking to someone like me that's living in the past, living in the future, living in the moment, which
It's exhausting.
yes.
It is exhausting. So, your CFO is going to, if we define it in a few words, your CFO is going to be looking at the risk.
Yes.
Your COO is going to be looking at execution. Could be every day or whatever great idea your CEO has now that you got to push forward. And how do we do that? And then the CEO is more of the visionary and the one that at the end of the day holds all the accountability. Mm-hmm. Now, when you're a business owner and you're that person, you have to, in order for you not to get burned out and want to tap out before it's time, I strongly believe that it's a matter of what kind of hat should I be wearing right now in front of this decision or in front of this task.
Okay.
So, for example, if you are looking at hiring someone new to do something specific, within that same conversation with yourself, you might have to switch hats along the way. But as long as you have some sort of method in the conversation with yourself where you can target every single one of those roles, then you'll be clear and clean, right? So sure, this is the vision and this is where I see that we could be like we're here now and we could be here if we were to hire a new leader. Great. Now, switch hats. Now you're the COO. So how am I going to do this? Because I see that I have this other person within the team that could potentially become that person, but they're not quite ready. So do we hire a coach to bring them up to speed faster? Do we allow them to focus and really hone into their strengths right now and do what they have to do now with a potential for growth in X? And we have that conversation. Do we go out there and start making some phone calls and names start coming up, right? You're done with that conversation. Switch hats. Now you're the CFO. What kind of risk? What kind of reward? What's our ROI? How soon can I get my return on bringing this person? Are they going to be producing enough for us to be able to pay this person's salary? So I feel like as entrepreneurs, we tend to get very overwhelmed when we try to wear all the hats within the same conversation with ourselves.
As you're running through this conversation, I'm probably wearing the wrong hat in the wrong objective in front of me. So one of the biggest things that drain me is the financial side. And I think I might just be wearing the wrong hat. I'm wearing the CEO hat and I'm observing numbers. So I'm using that hat. I'm looking at information and I'm just angry.
Yes.
But then if I take it to someone that is very financially sound, which I've done in the past, they're excited about it. They're like, look at your numbers. There's a lot of opportunity here. I was like, what do you mean I have opportunity here?
Yeah.
They're like, look at your numbers. Year by year, you've doubled or tripled. And you're losing money, but you're growing somewhere. So now we just have to look at your margins. Yeah. We just have to look at where you're spending your money. And I was like, so for those entrepreneurs and executives or solopreneurs, or maybe you have one head in front of you, I think one of the golden nuggets that you just presented there is, are you wearing the right hat for the right opportunity or adversity that's in front of you?
Yes. Absolutely. Listen, you wouldn't wear a baseball cap if you're wearing a suit. Probably not. Some people do it, but probably not.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, I love analogies. I think it drives the message, right? It's like wearing a shoe size that is not for you.
Right.
It's going to be uncomfortable and it's going to be painful. And you're not going to be able to walk from the door to the car because you're going to get blisters. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So break it down.
Yeah.
Break it down. We're having this conversation. Okay, this is what I'm doing. And sometimes it takes for you to truly visualize and pretend. Pretend like, okay, I'm switching hats now, right? Yeah. And you'll be that crazy person in your office, but no one needs to know.
Yeah. oh my gosh, I'm going to start doing that.
Yeah.
Because I think I'm just wearing one hat for every role.
Cannot do that.
Which is extremely overwhelming.
It's like wearing heels. Like, you wouldn't understand this, but it's like me wearing heels to go ice skating, to go snowboarding, and to go paddleboarding, and to go to work, and to... I love heels.
Mm-hmm.
I love ice skating, paddleboarding, snowboarding, but I cannot wear the same shoes all the time for every single one of those tasks, or right?
You can, but then it's just going to be draining.
Yeah, it's going to be draining. I'm going to get
You're
hurt.
Get injuries, yeah. And I think that's spot on. So that's just like one of the big messages that I'm just grasping right now is because of that. Okay, so let's move up a little bit.
Yes.
So let's just say I'm an entrepreneur. Now I'm able to create revenue to hire my first C-suite, right? So if you were going to direct somebody like me that has no executives underneath, I have management team underneath, which one would you try to fill? Like, should you fill the CEO hat? Should you give that away? Should you give the COO hat away? Should you give the CFO hat?
That is a beautiful question. And some people may have a very different view, but you're asking me, so I'm going to share my view with you.
Yes.
So here's the thing. The person that you need to hire at that time is the person that has all the strengths that you don't have, that has all the talents and all those, where are your pain areas? That's what you need. If I'm great at communicating with people and marketing the business and being out there and networking and being on the floor and connecting with my clients and so on, but you dread the days that you have to sit down and have a conversation with your bank account or with your P&L, that's the person you need to hire. Someone who's passionate for that. So now both of your jobs are light. Because you're doing exactly what you're really great at. You don't have to be great at everything.
Yeah.
Maybe at the beginning of entrepreneurship or solopreneurship, you have to.
Yeah.
But once you get to that point, hire the people. Surround yourself with the people that have what you don't have.
That is so good. Because mine is, you're talking to me, my bank account. Those are the ones that dread me. Looking at numbers, and I just try to avoid it entirely.
Yeah.
Right. So sometimes my limiting belief is, who likes to do this? No one in their right mind loves to look at numbers and have a smile on their face. So my limiting belief is, there's no one I can pay to do this. There's I can't believe someone would even want to do that.
You are not the same person as your spouse, as other trainers that you may have, as your clients, right? All your clients are different. Your suppliers, your vendors, they all have different personalities, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that how we kicked off?
Yeah.
That's exactly it. There's people that love that thrive closing the office door and just being in their cocoon all day surrounded by spreadsheets.
Yeah.
There are people like that out there.
Listen, if you're trying to lose weight, but you're just frustrated because you just can't seem to see any results, we would love to help you out. Now, we've been helping thousands of our athletes over the course of a decade by crafting personalized programs that are not only sustainable, but also effective. Now, if you're ready to transform your health, click on the show notes below, book a call with one of our coaches. We'd love to help you out. Now back to the show. Peace. So my wife is that, and I didn't realize. So I was like, hey, I need all these numbers and 1099s out by the end of today. And she closed the door. She put it on an Excel sheet, and she's smiling. And I'm like, what is happening?
She's loving it.
Yeah,
Yes,
she's loving it. She was
totally.
like, oh, I just love being part of a team. And I just love when I put things that are disorganized and I organize it into one thing. And I'm like, okay, so limiting belief poked a hole. Poked a hole. It poked another hole. And I think that's one of the more underlining things that I feel coaches, leaders, entrepreneurs, they're limited because they think no one's going to like that job. And every time I break that belief, I'm more open to just like, okay, so maybe there is a person that exists for this particular role.
Absolutely.
Which is beautiful.
Yeah. I think it's very great that when you see that you have a weakness or an area of opportunity, that you really work on it
Mm-hmm.
to because that is also part of piercing through that limiting belief, right?
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that you can do it and you've learned a few extra skills. The thing is the following. Does it make sense for you to spend 5 hours doing this? What can you be doing in those 5 hours? Are you able to drive more revenue in those 5 hours?
Mm-hmm.
Then it makes sense to hire someone who can do this in 2 hours.
Ah,
That doesn't
yeah.
mean you're bad at it. It just means you're not that passionate about it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
your assets should be placed elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. So you've seen this happen.
Oh, for
Yeah.
sure.
So you've seen this happen over and over again. And you take a person that is essentially wearing 3 hats, you dissolve it into 2 eventually, and so on. What does the productivity look like now for the person that's wearing less hats and it's a hat that they truly love?
It's going to be tripled. It depends on the person, but it's usually that. Like
Yeah.
we fail to recognize that it's okay to tap into resources.
Mhm.
That's, I feel, based on my experience, what I've seen, the number one barrier
Mhm.
for small business owners or entrepreneurs or solopreneurs, right? You don't tap into resources. You feel like you have to do it all and your brain is switching gears constantly, like from one thing to the rest, for one thing. You go crazy.
Mhm.
You have goal fatigue in the end because you're trying to achieve this and you're trying to achieve this and you're trying to achieve this. It gets very complicated.
Mhm.
Tapping into resources is great. Outsource. There's so many other people like you that run a business on their own. They're absolutely fantastic at doing this. Super.
Yeah. I love this.
Team up.
Because I've actually experienced this last year. I hired my first salesperson. And I'm thinking, okay, I can hire this salesperson. This salesperson's going to 1x my company. But I didn't realize that I became 3x by the time I hired him. So our company 3x's because I'm 3x.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very interesting when you're wearing all the hats, you're like, okay, if I bring this person, I might lose a little bit, 0.2%. He's not going to do 20%, the same amount of volume as I do on that role. But what I learned as I stepped out of that role is I became an entirely different person.
Yeah.
I started doing this podcast. I started networking more. I started meeting more people. And through that, created all these opportunities. So it's just, it's amazing. So I've never learned that. Like now you're giving me the nuggets and now you're sharing it to the world. Like sometimes your business will 3x, 4x, 5x based on that hire.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll see the return.
That's amazing. Okay.
As long as you're hiring the right person.
Yeah. How do you like, so let's just say I did hire a CFO. How would you manage that relationship? Because I've seen relationships where like, I don't want to do that. You deal with it. And then 10, 20, 30 years down the road, they steal money from them, because they're just so negligent about the money because they don't even want to deal with it. I've seen that happen to too many of my buddies.
I think that culture is critical.
Okay.
And when you think culture, you think, big corporation. It doesn't need to be that way. So how do we scale the word culture in a business model like yours? Is ensuring that you greet that person when they walk through the door, ensuring that you make them feel comfortable, where they know that their limits are going to be pushed.
Mm-hmm.
But this is what happens after, right? So I strongly believe that you have to define your culture first. And if you have a strong grip as to what that culture looks like, where you're looking at your values, those core values we were talking about, where you look at what is your mission as a business, how are you going to execute on that? When you're hiring, keeping your culture in mind, you're going to attract the right fit. You're going to attract a lot of other people that are looking for jobs.
Yes.
But the ones that are going to stand out are the ones that are in alignment with what you're looking for. So being able to have major clarity on exactly what you're looking for, meaning your culture, my weaknesses, right? What are my strengths too? Because do I want two of the same person? Not really, right? This is all about collaboration and adding pieces to the puzzle.
Right.
So when you have clarity around all of that, finding that person is going to become a lot easier, a lot lighter. And then doing things to create that synergy and building on that relationship.
Right.
I don't think anyone is free of that.
That scenario where
That
someone steals all your money.
it still can happen, but I also think that if you're methodical about the way you do it, you're minimizing the risk. And that's what business is all about. You're going to have to make tough decisions along the way. The most important thing is measure risk versus reward. And if there is risk, how do you minimize that?
That's way better. So if I built a culture that was my personality, my vision, and I lost money on the back end, someone stole some, right? Or I didn't have any culture, I hated working with this person. I would rather have the alternate where I designed my culture, I lived the experience, still lost money. It's 100%.
Yeah.
When you're creating culture, what would define a good culture for the organization that you're in? What are some things that you're noticing?
So a good culture is anything that, and it depends on the scale, right? Are we talking about a multi-million-dollar company? Are we talking about an international organization? Are we talking about a small business?
Yeah.
Are we talking about you being a solopreneur and bringing people that can collaborate in different projects? And how do you attract those people? It's all gonna depend. If I have to say one thing that is across the board is understanding those core values. That has to be in alignment with the core values. Now, the other thing is there are things that make a great culture. Example, making sure that people are empathetic with each other. That's the number one trait for a leader. Can you be genuinely empathetic? Can you put yourself in somebody else's shoes?
Yes.
Because that makes all the difference in the world, even when you're creating policies.
Yeah.
Right? So, being able to communicate effectively, being able to connect with people, creating those moments where if connection is one of your number one pillars, that means connection across the board. That means connection between us if we work together in different capacities. It means connecting with the clients when they are within our, under our roof. That means connecting with our suppliers. That means...
I love it. Okay, so how do you create these values? Because I feel like I could just go to ChatGPT. I was like, make me values. Like that might be a nightmare. At least from my perspective, and it took me a long time to find what my values were. How would you, if someone was like, I don't have values,
Yes.
I'm executive, I've been running a business for 5 years, what do you mean values? How do I find that?
Yes. Everybody has values. Your values could come from your environment, your experiences, maybe your background, right? What did you grow up around? For me, family is extremely important because I grew up in a culture where family is everything. Friendships are everything, right? You meet someone for 5 minutes and you're already offering them the keys to your car so that they can drive your car to your house on the beach and they can stay there for 2 weeks and have right? So it's your background, it's your experiences, it's your beliefs. Now, there are two different ways, or many different ways, but to maybe box it or present it in a Reader's Digest version is if it's a big organization and an organization is seeking to make a major cultural shift, what happens then is perhaps either a corporate coach or a marketing company will come in and bring specific people into the room, usually your higher ups from different departments so that you have that perspective. And through questions and exercises and prompts, you start understanding and creating and figuring out what makes us who we are.
So good.
What makes us different,
Yeah.
than anybody else, right? And then if you're the business owner, right? Or if you're looking at creating your own brand, it's the same thing. You're going to go through this very similar process where it's a series of questions that you can answer that will push you to gain some clarity around what are those things that you are passionate about, that you would like to see in the world, right? What makes your business different than anybody else? There are many businesses just like yours. There are many coaches just like me.
Yeah.
But what makes my business different is that we truly 100% believe in the growth of the people that are in our room. So regardless if it's one person where I'm doing one-on-one coaching, or if we are in a training room with 10 people or 200, we are going to make sure that we touch every single person's heart and brain in a way where by the time that they leave their room, they'll be like, this was really cool.
Yeah, I love that. So I hired a coach 4 years ago, and he asked me very similar questions, experiences, people I love, people I admire, books I read, authors and speakers that I watch. And he had me list out 5 people that I really love watching. I was like, I don't really read. At that time, I didn't read much. He's like, but I do watch certain people.
And that's okay, because tradition has ingrained in your brain forever and ever and ever that the only way for people to learn is by reading books. Guess what? We're all different learners.
Yeah.
So if for you it's watching or listening, embrace it. Do more of it.
Yeah. So initially I did
Sorry,
that.
I digressed.
It's okay. But yeah. But now I'm a reader, which is crazy to even think about. You asked me this like 4 years ago, and like, no, I'm never gonna read a book. But I listed out 5 people, and then he asked, why do you like them so much? And I was like, well, he seems curious. He takes a lot of action. Man, he has an awesome team around them. He always is caring at a high level. And this person is continuously growing. And those became my 5 values. It's curiosity, courage, collaboration, self-care. It used to be just care. It became self-care, and then continuous growth. And through that, I started to attract people in my team. I really was a solopreneur at the start. But the moment it became ingrained that those are the 5 things that I really love about people.
You laid it out and made it clear.
Yeah, and you started seeing people that had those values. It's like seeing the red car. Like, I want to buy a red car. And then you go out there, you see 500 red cars.
So it can sound esoterical, right? Where we attract what we believe. So I'll give you an example. I have twins. The day that I found out that I was having twins, I have an older child. We would go to the park and I would see twins everywhere. And I was like, this is crazy. I've never noticed this before. Is this a trend? What's going on? Right? So, but there's also a scientific explanation to it. You are producing those type of connections in your brain that are pushing your brain to receive more of that. So now your brain is seeking to see the twins, is seeking to see the red car, or the people that will perfectly equate to those 5 core values that you mentioned.
I love that. And that's where I love the law of attraction component to this. Like, what you see internally, you will also receive, because you're also just naturally seeing it more. So once I did that, I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many people that have these values. When I was running without cultural values, I was running blind.
Yes.
And I was just hiring people. I was like, oh, you have a certification?
Let's do it.
Perfect. Let's do it. And then the classes would go down and we would have some arguments, and it never worked out. And the moment I had these values, a lot of those risks that we were just previously discussing became non-existent.
Yeah.
But there were its own challenges. Is like you have too many people in your class, and that's a problem on its own, right? So is just I think a lot of times the most important hire is not an actual person. The most important hire is the values you first set out for yourself.
100%. We underestimate the power of culture.
Mm-hmm.
We underestimate it. And then people stop and think, why am I having so much turnover?
What's your culture? And they're like non-existent yet.
Right?
Yeah.
You either have no clarity, your team has no idea what it is. Maybe you know it as a leader, but your team doesn't.
Yes.
Is there an alignment between your department's culture and objectives and values and all those beautiful things and the organizations?
Mm-hmm.
If you have none of that, can we look at the organization's core values and mission and vision and then create something on your own that is still in alignment with that, but that will make everyone feel excited,
Yeah.
right, about this thing that is just ours?
Mm-hmm. I love that.
Yeah.
So
Me too.
My first 5 years, I hired people based on competence, which was cool. Sometimes that actually worked. Now, when you look at my onboarding, when I bring young people, I talk little about their resumes. Everything is about their character.
Yeah, and experiences, totally.
Yeah. Well, they have to have some basic. They have to have a
Of course.
certification. They have to have some fitness background. But what I highlight is who are these people,
Mm-hmm.
which has been pivotal to where I'm at now, and it's amazing to me. When is it? Because I feel like I've seen companies that have too much values. There's like 15 on their whiteboard.
No one's going to ever remember that.
So what's the sweet spot for you?
The most in my professional experience, don't go beyond 5.
Okay.
And I like the way you did it
Yeah.
because you are respecting a specific letter, although
Yeah.
you switched gears on the care. But if
Yeah.
you really think about it,
Still see.
care starts with you. So you can still use your care.
Yeah.
5 tops. If you can boil it down to 4, even better.
Mm-hmm.
Because it makes no sense for you to be able to articulate it if your people can't.
Mm-hmm.
If your people can't articulate it, they can't live it. And if they can't live it, what are your core values there for? Mission statements, vision statements. Why are you making it that complicated? It's the happiest place on earth. That's it.
Yes.
That's it. Just do it. That's it.
If you can't
Make it easy.
articulate
You have
it,
to be able to articulate it.
You can't live it. I'm stealing that one.
Yeah. Do it.
Yeah. So
We're sharing.
I had that because I had that scenario where I had like 15 values, and I was like, I can't even remember.
You
my
can't even
15
remember. How do you
values.
expect your people to remember
Yeah.
it? That's crazy talk.
Yeah. And then I dropped it down to 3, and then
It wasn't
I was like-
enough.
it wasn't enough because people were burning out without self-care,
Right.
and then it wasn't enough. Eventually, it wasn't enough. I was like, oh, you guys think you're like the top of the top. There was no continuous growth, so I had to add that 5th one on there. And I was like, okay, this is the one. This is it. So
And that is, Royce, one of the traits of a good leader, being able to adapt.
yeah,
So you tried this and it didn't work. We gotta, pull back, regroup, try this. We went too far. All right, how do we
Yeah.
meet in the middle? That's adaptability.
yeah, I love that. And I think one of my biggest fears was like, once you create values, you have to live and die by it.
Yes.
And someone was like, you should put it on your walls. And I'm like, I don't even know if it's going to work yet. I can't put it on my walls yet if it hasn't been refined and retested.
Is it up on your walls now that you feel like those 5 are the sweet spot?
It will be. I'm going to
You
make a
should.
coffee mug now because I think this is it.
Yeah.
This is the
I
5%.
highly encourage you to do it. And maybe it's not like the entire explanation that comes from care, right? But the word care,
Yeah.
where people can see it and it's in your face and it's a constant reminder of those 5 very important words
Yeah.
that we live by. Having that visual aid is so important.
Yeah.
It's a way of also knowing if you're winning or you're losing, like a
So good.
scoreboard in a game. right? If I'm not having a great day and I'm able to look at those 5 words and say, am I here today? Like, I feel like I'm hitting those 4, but not so much this one. Okay, what do I need to do to reframe and make this different? Because I have to hit all 5.
See, those are some hidden hacks that I could probably do in terms of improving my managing game. I don't have to be there all the time. But
welcome to performance coaching.
Yeah, right? Because I do it quarterly and I don't think it's enough. I ask them, it's like, how am I doing on these 5 attributes for myself?
Yeah.
And then they score me. And then I'm like, okay, this is how you're doing. How could we improve this together?
Yeah.
And it's so powerful because it's easier than, hey, you have your retention rate is this. It's just the number, it's just information. But if I target, it's like, I think your retention is so low because I've never seen you use collaboration. You've never asked me questions on how to improve your classes, or you never even asked this person that's killing it on there. You're siloed. I think if you just ask questions and just been part of the team a little bit more, I think your retention will grow. What do you think?
100%. Absolutely agree. When you make the team part of, and sometimes you can't make them part of every decision, right? But if you're able to give them a little space, we're able to give them the comfort where they are, where conflict is okay. And by conflict, I don't mean we're going to be loud at each other or we're going to be mean at each other. What I'm saying is conflict in the sense of disagreeing. It's okay to disagree. Why? Because now we are discussing different perspectives. And as long as respect is the number one indicator, then something great may come out of this. Right? So making them part of the process, part of the picture, I strongly believe in that. 100%. I want to share something very quickly with you. And a bit of a tip for anyone out there who's having a little trouble with both, with involving the team, making him part of it, and also living those core values. If you were to, again, in an effort to appeal to every type of learner, it cannot just be something we read. It could be something that we see, something that we touched, right? Something that we listened to. So what if you created a specific board that is the first thing that you see where your clients can see it too? And the reason why I say your clients can see it too is because now it opens that little door to engage with your client on a different level, because now they are going to ask, what is that? And you tell them the story behind it. So now they become part of it too.
Wow.
You create a board where you have maybe something that looks like either a racetrack or a timeline or whatever moves the needle for the collective, right? Visually. For some people, it could be a football field. For some people, it could be a racetrack. For some people, it's an elevator. And along the way, you make a stop for every single one of those 5 core values.
So good.
And let's say it's an elevator and you have your 5 core values and you have 5 team members, including yourself. You're going to pick a color with a little magnet, or you're going to pick, or you glue a little character that's you, right? Whatever it is that is going to represent every single one of those 5 people. And when they come into the shift, you ask them to tell you where are they standing on the elevator today. So now when you walk in, you're able to know where each one of them are.
Wow.
Right? Focusing on the positive, focusing on the strength. So out of these 5 values, which one can I drive the most today?
So good.
And that might mean that the last person that walks in that day has to pick up the slack for the rest of the team, or has to drive the rest of the team. And maybe self-care, everybody's doing great in these other 4, and self-care is one that you see that no one picked. That's going to be you. So now as a leader, your responsibility is to take that team on your shoulder and make sure that at a certain point in the day, you give them a little bit of that reminder of the self-care.
Powerful.
John, have you stopped for some water today? Or
Yeah.
here's a power bar. Whatever that looks like in your world,
Mhm.
make it happen. It's so simple. That's what creates culture.
So
Is the
good.
teeny tiny baby steps that will take you closer to creating that genuine connection with people.
That's so
That's the
good.
bottom line.
One of my greatest impacts in my team was not me working a lot. It was me texting them. I was like, actually, no, this is your day for you to take in charge. Fridays are going to be my day to really spend time with my family.
Yeah.
And that has created a ripple effect that for all my coaches, they're like, it's okay to actually have a day off. He's like, no,
Yeah.
I think you're going to be performing a lot better when you start putting those restraints on there. And I think I agree. There's no one, if no one's in your team is practicing self-care, it's your responsibility to show them that you need to do that for yourself.
Absolutely. In one of the anthologies that I participated in, where the topic was specifically around health and wellness, I used the analogy of the flight attendants. Like I said, I love using analogies because I think it helps me drive the message. Where flight attendants tell you if you're traveling with a child, put on your mask first before the kid, because otherwise neither one of you may survive, right? It's the same thing. If you want to serve your people, your community, your whatever that is, better and to the best of your ability, you have to take care of yourself. And self-care is not selfish.
Yeah.
Period. Right? So you have to start looking for those ways to take care of yourself. I have a course that is a group coaching course for 12 weeks. And the main objective is getting people off the hamster wheel. You're constantly in motion. You're saying yes to absolutely everything. Maybe it's because you're scared of not getting that being passed for that promotion, right? Or maybe it's because you think you don't have resources around you to help you with driving the kids to practice that day, because you can't be in two places at the same time. And if you try to, you're not only going to stress yourself, but you're going to stress the kids. You're going to drive like a maniac. You're going to put people in danger. There's all these things in your professional and personal life that come together that creates that stress around the hamster wheel syndrome, right? And this course touches on all of that. The fact that you have to tap into those resources and create that board of directors. Personal board of directors that I like calling, because any organization has it. Why can't you? You know that when you need help with perspective on the business, you're going to call this person. And when you need help with driving the kids around, you're going to call this person. And when you need help with bringing the team morale up because you feel like we're kind of flatlining and I haven't been able to find the inspiration myself because I'm so tired, you're going to call this person.
So good.
And when you create that group of your spark team, things change. Stress goes down. You're able to get off that hamster wheel and start feeling different. And you create some very methodical habits. And, you go from this being a task to it becoming a routine. And then from there, it's a habit. So now you do it naturally. And it's not as heavy anymore. But we have to look at the picture as a whole, the big picture of life and profession and what that looks like. Because you have to be able to serve if you're a leader, you're impacting someone. In a good way, in a bad way. Pick a lane. Pick a lane. Which lane do you want to be in?
There's no middle lane.
There's no middle lane. You want to impact them in a positive way? Fantastic. Then if you want to do that, you have to get off the hamster wheel and learn to take care of yourself. Learn to take care of everyone else around you from a place of strength. You can't be weak and haul kids around or have that outstanding conference call or whatever.
Guys, this is why it's so important to hire executive coaches or just coaches in general, because there's these just like one sentences that can completely create ripple effects for the rest of your life. What you brought up was the whole selfish thing. Self-care is not selfish. We're putting your mask on. That was groundbreaking for me at the time. And the way he presented it was like, hey, how many people are you serving right now? And I was like, oh yeah, like 150 people. It's like, if you were at the top of your top and you're feeling the best, because I was drained at the time. My eyes were like, I had the bags underneath. But he proposed a question. He's like, if you were at the top of your top, how many people would you think you can really serve at the highest level? I was like, oh my gosh, millions of people. And then he said, well, who's selfish now? And I was like,
Right.
who are you? And that's really where I started. That's where I hired my first coach. I started hiring multiple coaches beyond that, because it's from those little stories that you share, little moments. People think it needs to be this like, oh, you need to do these 100 action plans for you to be completely successful. Sometimes it's just one narrative. It takes one narrative to really just break this bubble, and then I don't know what happens.
Yeah.
So I love that.
And it's interesting that you said, how many people are you serving right now? And your focus to come up with 150 number was probably just work related.
It was just work related.
And the reality is you're also a son. You're also perhaps have siblings or not. You have friends. You have a spouse. You go to the grocery store and buy groceries.
Yeah.
You're having an interaction with that person at the register. Are you being moody?
Yeah.
Or are you saying, your hair looks great today?
Yeah.
Right?
It throws people off that I do that all the time.
You're serving people around you all the time, and we don't realize it because we only focus on the work. Yes. Or we only focus on the family, or now if you're able to open that umbrella and realize that it's all part of the same bucket, you're really impacting so much more people, or many more people.
100%.
Language gets in the way.
Yeah. I did that. I know all the guys over at Albertsons. I always get these chicken tenders every time at lunch. There's a guy named Lou, and he's just tatted up. And I'm always like, yo, Lou, did you get a new tat? I think no one says hi to these people. And because I've built such a relationship with them, they package it up for me already. They're like, I already got you, man. I already heated up. And it's because I've been spending so much more time feeding me that I'm able to be present, not only for my clients, but for those small interactions.
Yes, because at the end of the day, people want to be seen.
Yeah.
It's so all about connection. People want to be seen.
Okay. All right. I'm going to ask a question for a friend.
Yes.
You're gonna like this question. But so there's a quote, and I wrote it down because I just thought it was so pivotal for me. And it was broke people complain that they don't get paid enough. Rich people complain because they don't do enough. And I want to talk about and I'm just biased. Not all broke people do that, but the rich people side. How do you balance a person that's an executive that always feels like they need to do more? An example is like, hey, Royce, you did this. And you're like, yeah, but it's not that good enough. How do you balance that?
So 2 things that I can touch on this topic. On the one hand, I am inclined to believe that this is a cultural thing. In the US, we tend to be constantly seeking whatever success is supposed to be. What that creates is in that constant push to be at the top.
Yes.
Where the reality is, your top and my top might be completely different.
Yeah.
My definition of success can be completely different to yours. My definition of success at age 20, 30, 40, 60, 70 is going to be different. The minute we're able to realize that, it takes some of the pressure off.
Yes.
Right? So, in our constant quest to achieve, right? To be the best, to have the best car, to have all the beautiful clothes, to do all the things, right? Be super fit so that you can look great and have the best tennis shoes and all the things. In that constant craziness of seeking that, what tends to happen is your endorphins are going nuts. And then you get to that point where you achieved it and you crush. And when you crush, you feel empty. So what happens next is, what is my next objective? What is the next thing that I'm supposed to be doing? It's all about the mindset. Yes, we want to be on a path in life where we continuously improved. I do that as part of my corporate trainings. I apply continuous improvement in many ways. But if we do it in a methodical way, it doesn't feel as heavy. It doesn't lead to burnout. It doesn't lead to being caught in that hamster wheel we were just discussing, right? So making sure that A, you define what success looks like to you in this moment, and what would you like success to look like for you in X amount of years, and what are the steps you need to make to get yourself there?
So good.
What resources you need, what courses you need to take, what maybe extra steps in your career, like as these 2 promotions, or maybe I have to tap into this other department and learn about this department, or learn this trade, or learn about marketing, whatever that is. Build it. It's part of the process and part of the what the journey should look like, right? So that way you're not constantly feeling that sense of emptiness, because I feel like I'm not doing enough, or I'm not achieving enough, because you're high, and then when you reach, you're exhausted. You probably see that in your own profession.
You're speaking to me, because I had that. That was my scenario when I hired my first life coach, because I hit the peak. I wanted to hit 6 figures as an entrepreneur. I was like, I'm good. I have my house, I have my car, I have my wife, I have my kid. And as soon as I achieved that, that was the most depressed I've ever been.
Yeah. Because you have no goal.
Yeah. And it was very, very interesting. And I'm not completely immune to it yet, because I still get into those pockets where I achieve so much, and then I get there and then I get crushed again. It was only recently when I started to dive into faith, which was huge for me, like thinking that you're already worthy. I had this limiting belief that if I already felt that I'm worthy, I'm not gonna have any desire to do anything. But ironically, when I'm coming from a place of already feeling worthy, the only byproduct is just me giving.
Yeah.
And in the result of that giving, you just get more in return, but you already have enough. When you have enough and you're overfilled, the only thing you can do is no longer receive, you just give. And it took me a long time to understand that. And I completely agree. And I'll have moments sometimes where I'll achieve something, and then I feel empty and I got to check myself. I was like, where did that come from? Did my actions come from a place of I didn't have enough of something? Or did those actions come a place from I already have enough? I'm just doing this because I'm extending that.
Right.
Which is money.
I think it has to do with unlearning. And those cues from society where, again, having the car, having the business, having the blah, 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 blah is the expectation. Unlearn that. Set an expectation for yourself, because, again, depending on the age, the moment, the time in your life, your definition of success is going to be different. Success to me right now means being able to sleep in my own bed every night. I'll still travel, right? But when I was on a plane Monday through Friday, or Sunday night through Friday, last flight into Vegas, that was the way I defined success back then. Our needs change depending on where we are. So when we are able to unlearn what society has taught us, what the expectation has taught us, that's when we start making those changes. Where for you now, seeking faith was what you needed.
Which is huge, yeah. So I did a podcast a long time ago, and it was the stages of learning. I think you just added to another phase to it. So the first phase of learning was forced learning, which was the educational system. And they give a specific paradigm and framework that you need to learn, which is important. It can be reformed for sure. And then there was a second phase of learning for me, which is non-learning. which was no learning whatsoever. I thought I knew everything. And then there was a third stage of learning for me, which was conscious learning, which was like, I'm going to go read all the books. I plummeted through hundreds of books over like 2 years. And now I'm in this really interesting stage, and that you just brought up, which is unlearning, which is like just blew my mind, because I am in a stage now. I'm like, I'm unlearning things more than learning through learning, which is so pivotal. So I want to like let people know that if you feel like you're unlearning things, I think you're going the right path.
Yeah. But you still have to go through the process of the traditional learning, and then the learning, and then the methodical learning, right? Or the conscious, meaningful learning. Because when you start unlearning specific things that no longer serve you, you're replacing with other things that now make more sense to you.
Yeah.
Because you've gained all this experience throughout the years, and you've went through meeting all these different people that impacted you in a different way. Mm-hmm. So it is a critical stage in growth.
Yeah. You just added that layer to me. Now I'm excited to share it with my team at some point. Okay, so I want to talk about the executive side again, because you've been an executive for quite a long time. And there's probably going to be listeners here that are executives and leaders. And I think one of the hardest things is leaving a scenario where you're a highly paid executive and then moving into entrepreneurship 13 years ago for you. When do you know it's the right time, or when is to do that?
I would challenge the thought of the right time.
Okay.
I'll tell you why. In the 13 years that I've had my firm, life happened.
Yes.
Right? I had 2 more kids, and my husband and I have always been very supportive of each other's careers.
Yeah.
And from the get-go, from the day that we met, it was important for both of us that we would figure out a way to carry the load for the other when it was time for the other one to grow. So there were moments within those 13 years that I had my firm where my husband had to take the next step. So I had to be home more often, or I have to, whatever that looked like, right? And vice versa. And then on the same token, I was very, very methodical about having specific pieces of experience that I could check off. Because to me, that was success.
Yes.
I had groomed myself to be the leader for a specific region in a specific organization, and I was doing consulting for that organization, and eventually a full-time position opened up, and I was the best candidate because I knew the region so well, and I had been helping turn it around and so on.